Hello, beloveds. Welcome. Om Namah Shivaya. I'm so pleased to be with you. My name is Reverend Gregory Stevens. I use they and he pronouns. I'm wearing a blue button-down shirt with a black and white Palestinian keffiyeh around my neck. I'm sitting in front of Indian prayer flags and then also a very colorful picture, cloth picture of Ganesha. I come to you from Oakland, California, from Ohlone lands, where my office is. I am the Northern California Director of California Interfaith Power and Light. That's how I sell my labor power. But our offices are shared out of the Unitarian Church of Oakland. I also am coming to you as a member of the Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco. I'm the founder of the Unitarian Universalist EcoSocialist Network, where we're trying to bring ecological and revolutionary socialist politics, both the strategy and the theory and tactics, into Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country and hopefully one day the world. We do this because a lot of our congregations think and talk and act about liberation and justice and equity, but they don't really seem to know how to get there. And so we have created this network in attempts to say we've got the pathway because our revolutionary working class, our class, has done this before and been in this fight for a long time and knows some things about successful ways of waging revolutionary social transformation. Today's talk, or my breakout session, is entitled EcoSocialism is Not a Metaphor. But before we get into that, I'd like to have a scripture reading or two. This first scripture reading comes from Assata Shakur. She writes, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." And this next one comes from the book of James, Jesus' brother actually, from the Christian New Testament. "Now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth has rotted and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourself in the days of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent ones." Then this next reading comes from the author and journalist Chris Hedges. He writes, "Revolutions required skilled organizers, self-discipline, an alternative ideological vision, revolutionary art, revolutionary education. They require sustained disruptions of power, and most importantly, leaders who represent the movement. Revolutions are long, difficult projects that take years to make, slowly and often imperceptibly eating away at the foundations of power. The successful revolutions of the past, along with their theorists, should be our guide, not the ephemeral images that entrance us on mass media." And then finally, a reading from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He wrote this in 1967, and it was to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference staff. "We must recognize that we can't solve our problem now until there's a radical redistribution of economic and political power. This means a revolution of values and other things. We must see now that the evils of racism, economic exploitation, and militarism are all tied together. You can't really get rid of one without getting rid of all the others. The whole structure of American life must be changed. America is a hypocritical nation, and we must put our house back in order." A word of the Lord. Thanks be to the goddess. EcoSocialism is not a metaphor. That's the title of this workshop, but it's more than a title. It's a challenge. It's a warning. A spiritual and political claim. So let's sit with this for a moment and ask, what does it mean to say that something is not a metaphor? A metaphor helps us grasp the intangible. It points beyond itself. But sometimes when we speak in metaphor, we soften what needs to be said really plainly. We mystify what demands clarity. You see, eco-socialism is not merely an idea that's meant to inspire us. It's an actual direction that we must move in for our species' survival. Eco-socialism is not just poetry, although there is beauty in it. It's not a vibe, though it does give life. Eco-socialism is a concrete political project. Now, I say this with love because I know many of us, especially in our religious communities, are drawn to beautiful visions of society. And that really matters. Beauty matters. Imagination matters. But our planet is on fire and burning. Our neighbors are starving. Whole ecosystems are collapsing. And too often, we you still end up speaking of justice as if it's a metaphor. When we say the interdependent web of all existence, we cannot mean that poetically. We must mean it literally and politically. Because that web is currently, because of capitalists, unraveling. Capitalism is literally holding the scissors and cutting away at this web. So this workshop isn't simply about being inspired, it's about being equipped, spiritually and politically. Because the question we face is not, do we want an eco-socialist world? The question is, will anything survive if we don't build the eco-socialist alternative? And here's the truth that we're offering you today. There's no green capitalism. There's no technocratic solution that will save Earth while protecting the wealth of the ruling class. There's no pathway through the ecological crisis that does not involve class struggle, abolition, land return, or transformation at the very roots. That's what eco-socialism is. It's the name for a revolutionary path forward, grounded in the ecological harmony and democratic control, and care over profit, in life over capital. In this moment demands we stop treating that as symbolic. It is material. It is urgent. It is very real. I'm bringing you this message not as a political organizer, but as a Unitarian Universalist. Our faith tradition calls us to speak prophetic truth, to build beloved community, to resist empire, and not to do so metaphorically, but materially. And that means facing head-on the systems killing our world and choosing the hard work of collective liberation. Eco-socialism is not a metaphor. It is the lifeboat we must build together while the empire sinks. And that's where we're going to begin. I have a little confession. I have spent many years in Unitarian Universalist spaces where justice has been spoken of, but it often is spoken of as a metaphor. We often light the chalice or speak of beloved community. We read affirmations about justice, equity, compassion, and human relations. We will sing about peace and freedom. But too often we stop there. Or maybe there's a petition to lobby some democratic person to, do their job. But rarely do we ask, what does it actually require to build beloved community materially, not just metaphorically? We don't ask what compassion costs. We don't ask what must be dismantled to build justice in this world. And when we do, it doesn't ever seem to go far enough. Eco-socialism says, let's get to the root of these problems. We can't tackle climate change, racism, white supremacy, colonialism without destroying capitalism first. Eco-socialism doesn't let us hide behind a metaphor. It doesn't let us pretend that recycling and carpooling and switching to metal straws are enough. It says, if we love Earth, we will end capitalism. And that is a spiritual demand as much as it is a political one. Because Unitarian Universalism at its best is a prophetic faith. It's not supposed to make us comfortable all the time. It's supposed to call us into integrity. Our Unitarian Universalist values, from the 7 principles to our newer Article 2 language, speak of the interconnected web, the practice of democracy, the pursuit of justice, equity, and transformation. And these are all powerful commitments, but they are not abstract commitments. They can be made very material. You see, the interconnected web of all reality is not a symbol. It's the soil, the coral reefs, the rainforest, the pollinators, the bees, the watersheds. It's the labor of farm workers and the wisdom of indigenous nations and the stolen breath of black communities choking on pollution. And democracy? Capitalism devours democracy, which, side note, should be a key note to UU the Vote. UU the Vote is propping up a vision of democracy, of capitalist democracy. It is not true democracy. It is not deep democracy. It is not the way that we should be moving. We should be destroying systems of capitalism which destroy people and destroy planet, and not trying to redeem them by getting more people of color or more marginalized groups, more queer people into those spaces of exploitation and oppression. So capitalism devours democracy. It's a system that concentrates power and wealth in the hands of fossil fuel executives and real estate developers and private utilities. That's not democracy. No matter how many times we vote, those people are still the ones with the power. When we speak of justice, we must ask, who owns the land? Who controls the energy? Who profits from extraction? And who's left to bury the dead? You see, workers built this world. Workers should run this world. Democracy would be worker-run if it was true. Instead, it's a very select, small few people who have democracy. It's socialism for the rich, capitalism for the rest of us. But if we believe in justice and equity and compassion, we must believe in building a world that centers those things over and above profit. One where the land is held in common, where energy is renewable and democratically controlled, where housing and healthcare are guaranteed, where the earth is not seen as a commodity but as sacred. This also blows my mind. How could Unitarian Universalists not get behind a world where everyone has housing, healthcare, good quality education, clothing, food? I mean, this is the world we socialists are fighting for. And to say otherwise is to fight against real, deep democratic justice. And that's what eco-socialism offers us. It's not a metaphor, but a roadmap. It's not utopia. It's a directional path towards a real viable solution, a real alternative to capitalist exploitation. As you use, our theology must be more than comforting words. It must be a tool for collective survival, for liberation and for revolution. A revolution, friends, is a spiritual act. It's the turning of the world upside down, the great repentance, the refusal to go along with the destruction, the sacred no to empire, and the sacred yes to life. So let's not just speak our values. Let's live them. Let's fight for them. Let's organize around them. Because if we take them seriously, if we live them beyond metaphor, they will lead us straight into the arms of eco-socialism. If we're going to be honest, spiritually, politically, and ecologically honest, then we have to stop pretending we can live in both capitalist worlds and our Unitarian world of liberation and justice. We cannot live faithfully inside capitalism and imperialism and also say that we believe in justice and democracy and the interdependent web of all existence. Capitalism is a death cult. It does not accidentally destroy the earth. It's fundamental. It requires the destruction of the earth to survive, which is antithetical to survival. And yet, even in the ruins, we are told there are no alternatives. Socialism is just hierarchy and control. But there is an alternative, and socialism is not hierarchy and control. There are many solutions, and they're not all metaphors. They're real. Actually existing socialism is a real thing. It's called EcoSocialism, and in many places around the world, we can see how this growth of communist politics has embodied the world in which our Unitarian Universalist values speak to. So let's be clear. When we say EcoSocialism, we do not mean nice environmental politics, or policies, I guess. We don't mean greener capitalism. We don't mean you the vote. We don't even mean decentralized horizontal mutual aid. That does have its place at times. No, eco-socialism is grounded in communism, which means a total transformation of how we relate to each other, to labor, to land, and to life. Communism, in its core vision, is not about authoritarian rule. It's about abolishing private ownership of the means of life, of land, of housing, energy, production. It's about putting those back into the hands of the workers. The workers run the world, or the workers built the world, they should run the world. It's about planning the economy democratically to meet the needs of people rather than of the profit system. It's about collective ownership, decommodification, and ecological balance, guided by the wisdom of science, indigenous knowledges, and revolutionary struggle. Let me say this clearly. As Unitarian Universalists, we don't have to fear the word communism. We should embrace it. We already believe in its moral core, the worth and dignity of every person, the call to dismantle systems of oppression and domination, in the vision of a beloved community where no one is disposable. One of the most significant and deliberately ignored examples of eco-socialist potential is China. China with socialist characteristics. In just over 30 years, socialist planning lifted 850 million people out of poverty. Let that sink in. 850 million people. Communist and socialist states have lifted more people out of poverty than any sort of socialist or any sort of government organization in world history. China is now the world leader in solar and wind energy, building massive solar fields in the desert, investing in renewable infrastructure at scale Western governments won't even go near. And they're building these things called sponge cities, urban designs that capture rainwater, reduce flooding, and restore ecological balance to concrete-dominated landscapes. Are there contradictions? Of course there are contradictions. China is still entangled with global markets and fossil fuels and is slowly trying to phase them out. But that doesn't erase the fact that this is a living laboratory of eco-construction, guided by a socialist state that is attempting to plan long-term for survival. That's not a metaphor. That's eco-socialism being tested at scale. Now, before we move on, here's a short video clip of Professor Yu of Peking University talking about sponge cities.
We need to embrace water, right? Not boxing against water, but to play Tai Chi with water, to be friendly. We want to build a green, sustainable infrastructure, which is a sponge city. To contain water, to slow down water, so that to make water a friend. Water is life for everything. 80% of our body is water. I have built over 1,000 projects in more than 200 cities in China, in Thailand, in US. When you push the beast at the corner, the beast will kill you. Water is the same. Water always wins. Conventionally, people solve the problem, one solution, one problem, right? Like flood, okay, we build a wall. But actually, water is a holistic solution. If you can manage water wisely, you can solve all the problems simultaneously. Adaptation and mitigation. You can have abundance of vegetations that can catch carbon, solve the problem holistically and based on nature. We slow down the water flow instead of engineering solution to channelize the waterways. We recover the waterway, dechannelize or naturalize the river so that you have habitat for biodiversity, green and blue together. I grew up in a village before I left for college. There's a creek. The creek flooded every year because of monsoon season. So whenever the flood comes, we are all happy. We get excited because that time the fish come to the pond, the fish come to the doorways, the fish come to rice paddy. You catch fish. So water is nothing wrong. I fell into the water once when I was only 10 years old during the monsoon flood. I chased the fish and jumped and fell into the flood. But I survived. You know why? Because I catch the trees, saved my life. But today, when you go back to that creek and you fell into the creek during the monsoon flood, you're going to die. It's not natural creek anymore. Today, people are afraid of water because we lose control. Sponge City is not a cost, it is an investment. One catastrophic storm will cause damage, hundreds of millions of dollars lost. If you build a Sponge City, you will reduce the cost. If you act locally, you solve the problem globally. As a sponge, you have millions, thousands of millions of small cells that create a sponge idea. It's not a big reservoir. It is a cell that make difference. Incremental, that will allow individual family, individual people, everyone, every community, every neighborhood can contribute to the creation of this sponge globe.
And then there's Cuba, a tiny little island, well, half of an island, under brutal U.S. blockade, with almost no natural resources left, that has managed to survive through socialist resilience, but under capitalist domination. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Cuba lost 80% of its oil overnight. What'd they do? They didn't collapse, they adapted. They turned to organic urban farming, to permaculture, to agroecology. Cuba now is one of the most sustainable agricultural systems in the world, not because it's easy, but because it was necessary, because it was planned, because it was a socialist economy that saw that people and planet matter more than profit. Cuba also provides free healthcare, free education, and have one of the highest doctor-to-patient ratios in the world. When the U.S. is dropping bombs and exporting bombs around the world, Cuba is sending doctors around the world. That's international EcoSocialism. That is what it looks like when you care for people over profit. EcoSocialism is not a foreign concept. It's the deep logic of interdependence. It's taking interdependence to its most logical end. It's the lived expression of our Unitarian Universalist values, not just in belief, it's material presence in practice. The interdependent web is not a metaphor. The earth is not a metaphor. And communism, eco-socialism, is not a metaphor. These are living systems, revolutionary commitments. They are sacred. We are not here to greenwash empire. We're here to build the world after capitalism, a socialist world being birthed through capitalism. We're here to lift up what's already blooming, to say yes to the land, yes to people, yes to our collective future. We're here to say no to the lies of scarcity, domination, and profit. That is what it means to say eco-socialism is not a metaphor. This is what it means to love Earth, not with words, but with deeds and the work of revolution. So, friends, queerly beloved, siblings in the struggle, if you stayed with me this far, you already know eco-socialism is not a metaphor. It's not a concept. It's not a niche idea. It's not a hashtag or a policy platform or a single issue cause. Eco-socialism is a deep, moral, spiritual, and material commitment that we must remake the world. and we must do it together. We must do it with our hands in the soil and our eyes on the communist horizon. We must do it with the fires that burn and the floods that rise within us and around us. We must do it because we love. We love this world too much to let it die at the hands of profiteering capitalists. My Unitarian Universalist faith calls me to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. But that doesn't just mean I'm nice to people on Sunday. What does it mean, though, when entire nations are sinking into the sea, when billionaires plan to escape to Mars while workers die of heat and famine? Well, it means we must make that worth and dignity real, not in words, but in larger systems, social systems, governmental systems. The ways in which we organize all of society can have at its core that human beings have worth and dignity. Our shared covenants call us to justice, equity, compassion, and human relationships. But that cannot happen under capitalism. It's impossible. We cannot have equity in a system that depends on exploitation. We cannot have compassion when survival is behind a paywall. So we turn not just in resistance, not just to revolution, but to love, toward a better way of living, a communal way, a sacred way, a revolutionary way. Which leads me to ask, what if church was practiced for the next world? Imagine your congregation not just as a sanctuary for the world's pain, but as a forge where we can craft the world to come. Reminds me of the old iron sharpens iron saying. Imagine Sunday worship as a revolutionary rehearsal. Imagine the chalice as a beacon not just of hope, but of heat, of fire, of the holy burning that refines and transforms. Imagine if our hymns told the truth, if our sermons told the truth, if our actions spoke the truth, and that is that the earth does not belong to us. We are a part of her. That hoarded wealth is stolen labor. That healing requires the redistribution of wealth and power. That there is no spiritual salvation without material justice. This is not just political work, it's deeply spiritual work. To build an eco-socialist world is to enter the sacred practice of reweaving the web of life, not in theory, not in metaphor, but in lived actual practice. To plant seeds with others in community in defiance of empire is an act of faith. To strike, to organize, to block the bulldozers, to house the unhoused, to cook and clean and teach and heal, all in community. These are spiritual acts. If we claim them as such, they are. And as Unitarian Universalists, we were made for this moment. We have no creeds to chain us. We have no dogmas to bind us. We are a free people, called by love, shaped by justice, committed by covenant. And that freedom comes with a deep responsibility. We must use our faith. We must embody our values. We must risk our comfort. Because this is the moment. This is the time. So here is the charge. Don't leave this workshop thinking the work is elsewhere. The work is in your congregation. It's in your heart. It's in your head. It's in your neighborhood. It's in your city council. It's in the soil beneath your feet, the streets, the classroom, the picket line, the farm, the prison, the fire zone, the floodplain. It's up to you to start a socialist study group, to join a climate justice campaign, to host a political education night, to volunteer at an indigenous land trust, to fight for prison abolition, to preach it, teach it, to live it. And say it loud when the time comes that we are the Unitarian Universalists who believe another world is not only possible, but that we are building the necessary alternative here and now, an eco-socialist world that we all deserve. So, may the earth hold us in her burning hands. May the ancestors stir in our blood, whispering revolution and reverence. May we walk forward with our feet rooted in social justice, our hearts open to solidarity, our minds sharp with political analysis, and our spirits fed by the fire of communal love. May we not settle for reform when what we need is a resurrection, a revolution. May we not mistake charity for liberation. May we not confuse metaphor with lived movement. May we be bold. May we be brave. May we be ready. The world we long for is not a metaphor. The work begins now. Join us in this sacred and holy fight for an eco-socialist alternative where people and planet matter well before profit. Thank you for joining us during this workshop. I hope that you've learned something, you have something to take home with you. Please know, though, that we are trying to build out this network, the Unitarian Universalist Eco-Socialist Network. I'll throw up a slide here right now so you can see that our website is there. We have social media, Facebook and Instagram we're most active on. We're also on Blue Sky. We have a Patreon page, and we also have a t-shirt store on Bonfire where you can get eco-socialist gear to show off in your congregation. So again, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us at GA. I'm looking forward to passing some of the actions of immediate witness, and I hope that you will lend your voice and your spirit to another wonderful year of coming together as Unitarian Universalists to build the world we know is possible. And on a quiet day, you can hear her singing in the wind. Om Namah Shivaya, blessed be, Ashe, Ooh, Amen.